Oh, and somebody's got little people in the background. That's awesome. All right, and we're live. All right, folks, welcome back to another week here on This Week in Search, and we have a full. This is kind of neat, man. I guess go around. I don't think we're gonna have time to hear to sit and everyone tell us what you're doing lately. So we'll just let everyone introduce themselves. So Andy, tell everyone who you are and where you work.
Right, okay. Andy Drinkwater, I work over in the UK in Chester, although the majority of my clients are in the US. What I do mainly is I focus on two areas. One is technical SEO, the other is reputation management. Those are my two big areas.
Ooh, nice.
I'm a big advocate of site structure, architecture, internal linking. Tend to get some really good things with that. I'm trying to sort of stay away from the on-page side of things more and focus on slightly technical areas, which is where I'm finding as Google is getting a bit cleverer that there's more and more issues to be found, especially if you use sites like Wix. Find lots of technical issues there. And you would get that in
just had to be done, huh? All right, Mr. Gill, sir, tell everyone who you are. For those that are living under a rock, don't know who you are. Oh, Bill. Did you just have a coronary? Oh, there he is. He's alive. Oh, God.
Yes, about me. Bill Salsky, the author of SEO Director of SEO Research for GoFish to follow, and I'll tell you that I'm based in Carlsbad, California. We have clients from across the USA, and I tend to specialize in technical SEO and audits.
And James, you're still echoing, buddy? All right, and speaking of James, since you're echoing, you got to say hello and let everyone know who you are.
Okay, James Morris, CTO for Wellspring Search. Mainly focus on on-page technical aspects like WordPress evangelist, server side, security, things like that. Kind of a little bit of a generalist, but especially WordPress. That's my bag.
Good to have you. One of the original people. So nice to see you, buddy. All right, Carl.
All right, Carl Hindle, Chief Chimp at Wellspring Search. This is my circus. These are my monkeys. James is trying to reel them all in for me. I think I probably know less than most of the guys on this panel have forgotten when it comes to SEO, but I've been working with SEO for about 10 years now, I suppose. Started off as a writer back in the good old days. Worked my way through agency side, ended up as digital director at Child Fund down in Richmond, and now back to agency side trying to build some dreams with James over there.
All right, Kevin, buddy. Other than NHL and Battlefield, tell everyone who you are.
Kevin Dory. I work at Dealer On. I do automotive SEO. I do local SEO. I do technical SEO. I'm back in agency life. I've been doing this for 10 plus years. Short and sweet. There you go.
Mr. Doc.
Doc Sheldon, Intrinsic Value SEO and Search News Central. I focus primarily on technical SEO and busting everybody's chops.
What you getting better at? Granted. Steve?
Practice.
Oh, sorry, Steve Bonin. I forgot we got two Steves. Thank God bloody Paisley isn't there. So
only two.
Yes. Yeah, only two this week.
Only two this week. Steve Bonin, Harris Web Creative. I basically do on-site, on-page SEO, some technical stuff, and a fair bit of writing. That's it. I've been doing it for about 4 years.
Where the hell are you writing? You should share that stuff with the group more often. And
I write about stem cell research.
Oh, okay, forget it.
And
never fucking mind, man. All right, moving right along, Mr. Guerin, sir. Mr. Guerin, sir.
Steve Gertzer, Steam Driven Media and Gentleman Farmer. Been, what, 20 years or more? Anyway, been focusing mostly on paid traffic these days and analytics. That's where we've been spending almost all our time. But like pretty much everybody else in this group, we can all do everything. So.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Perfectly. You ever need local SEO? I'm your man. So we all know that.
Yep.
And LSI.
Oh, yeah, well, goes without saying. Tim.
Tim Calling, a Service Art Web Design and Marketing. I do almost all local work with primarily healthcare-related clients, home health, things like that. That's me.
All right, so let's move along to some fun. Well, right, I'm pretty sure we'll just go here because Andy is so thrilled about it. All right, so apparently Miller came out with some more information on the recent update. Let's just quote that. I never know. Like he's actually better at saying nothing. Anyway, so the quote is, "This is something kind of like we mentioned before. These are general algorithm updates that we make from time to time, blah, 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 blah. It's not like your site is worse or different anyway. It's essentially our algorithms are reevaluating what we think makes sense and what we think is relevant for the results for the specific queries and users." Andy, like I said, queries. Anyways, and this can and should change over time. That's completely normal. One example you might use and blah, blah, blah. So, okay, so that's a search engine journal article that really kind of is going back to John Mueller and saying pretty much nothing. So, all right, so Andy, you and I kind of jumped in on this a little bit before we started. So, you know, your personal thinking, see how I did that, is that it's not a EAT thing. And for anyone watching now or later, EAT is expertise, authority, trust. Some other people have gone with the money or your life queries. Barry, friend of the dojo, went out and said that it was the medic query, and that really kind of, you know, whatever. We do have a bad habit of naming shit in this industry. So,
well, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it is horrible. I've always hated that because, you know, I can actually say this now because on mattcutts.org later today will be the story of my relationship with Matt Cutts that Barry talked to me about and asked me to post. So my full transparency of my relationship with Google for the last 15 years is going to come out later today. So, you know, same kind of thing. Matt used to talk to me, and half the time the things that the industry was saying was so far off base, it was crazy and stuff. So your current thinking is it's definitely not EAT or anything like that. That these are something else in play.
Yes, I mean, and from what you see, there's definitely something else that's at work here as well. Exactly what it is, I don't know yet. I may find something out at some point. I may not find something out, depending on who we sort of talk to. But query classification, which you mentioned as well, is an interesting one because there is a lot of what we've seen. I mean, I don't know if anybody's seen the work that Systrix did regarding.
We
regarding
actually a couple of shows ago did review some of their findings and stuff.
Yeah, I mean and that was really interesting because if you look at the winners and the losers on their their scale, their board, that really did sort of say, right, okay, well you can sort of see a bit of what's going on here as well, but is it related to things like your money, your life? There is a possibility that there's something along those sorts of lines.
What happens to me, Andy, is that I tend to have a problem with anything from Systrix or Search Metrics or any of these weather reports or what have you, is because they're looking at overall visibility per se. They're not looking specifically at which queries that gained visibility. Like what type of queries were they? Informational, transactional, quasi ones, in between. So I think often those things can be misleading for people that just want to take them at face value and say, oh, well, this. And I think that's what kind of happened. It was like, oh, these sites got hit, so it's the medic update and stuff like that. And
Yes.
Well, which query spaces though? Like what were they and what changed in them in that visibility scale? And I think that's the information we don't seem to get. So,
and you know what? We probably won't. I mean, we're left high and dry for the most part by Google these days. I mean, I don't think we'll ever see the days where we were getting updates about what they're actually focusing on. Why is anybody's guess, I suppose, but it would be nice to think that what Google's trying to do is sort of the queries themselves, trying to make sure that the context in the queries and so like making sure that who's actually sort of getting to the pages themselves, making sure that what you're actually searching for is what you actually want to get. And looking at some of what Systrix have been doing and what Systrix have actually been showing, you kind of see some of that in there. I mean, I'd love to say it's something about trying to weed out the trash. But
yeah, but see, again, to me, like you show a bunch of domains and visibility, it doesn't really tell me what queries they're looking at. Bill,
Yeah.
did you spend any time looking at any of this stuff, Bill, or you just busy auditing shit?
To unmute myself there. No, I haven't spent much time at all looking at those. Core updates are core updates. They aren't supposed to be something you can make changes to your site to fix. I know there's a lot of stuff with query rewriting under things like RankBrain and Hummingbird. I see people write articles about the definitive guide to such and such, and they explain a bunch of copywriting tricks and say that's going to rank your site better for Hummingbird or RankBrain. And
what you're saying is you've unsubscribed from Brian Dean and Neil Patel then.
Neil Patel,
Yeah.
thank you.
yeah, I mean, I've got enough bullshit to deal with every day. I don't need those.
Yeah, the optimizing for RankBrain kind of just drives me up a tree.
Okay, but all right. So on the core algo thing, though, is again, anybody got any insights they took, or at least see any movement? Kev, you actually deal in some fairly expansive query spaces. Like, did you see a lot of movement in your world? Like, because you're very intimate, because you're very focused on the query spaces you live in. Like a lot of SEOs, we do things across the different query spaces all over the place, different niches, different markets. You're very focused on one area with automotive. Like, what was there any substantial movement or anything you could attribute to anything or see?
No, I haven't seen it. I was hoping to, based on the data sets that we have and the capability, but nothing. If you didn't tell me that there was an update, I would not have stuck my hand up and said, hey, something changed. We weren't impacted one way or the other.
Right. And so the theory of it being your money or your life stuff that a lot of people had would probably have affected you, because a car is a fairly sizable purchase that would fall under your money or your life. So if you're not seeing stuff, then that kind of does dispute it a bit, wouldn't it?
Yeah, it's just the problem is there's so many other factors that I didn't want to come out and say it hasn't. Like, I disagree with that, because it's sort of like I have research. My answers are, I have no answers. Just my no answers negate your answers. If you see that, it's just I'd like to see it by the end of the year. Maybe it takes longer for it to shake out, but with the new models coming out, we have more. The changes that we're seeing are more consistent with the seasonality that we normally see. So it hasn't changed.
So when you take seasonal flux into consideration, it's probably all standard operating procedure.
Yes, and it gets a little screwy because we're in the next 2 months where the new models come out and it changes everything from a search query standpoint.
Yeah, if I may, I'd just like to reinforce that we've got quite a few used car dealers. So we're not on with the new guys, but same thing. If you hadn't said there's an algorithm change or algorithm movement, we wouldn't have seen anything on our side, to be quite candid. In fact, sorry, if I may, I think the thing that's skewing this as well on the car side and the auto is because of Labor Day, I think. Mm-hmm. All of our dealers, the week before and the week after Labor Day, they tend to go flat in terms of traffic anyway. So it's mess. Sorry, Bill.
So, okay, I was going to say we've been told from Google that they make a change to the core algorithms that they use like 2 times a day anyway. And they're small things, a lot of cases. So they're mostly unnoticeable.
Yeah, but isn't this, or rather, my understanding from what I've been reading, isn't this part of a broad core change as opposed to the kind of 2, 3, 4 times daily little minor tweaks? And the other thing that I understand, and I'm reading other people's stuff, it's not original thought, is that at the moment it's just the US that's affected. Andy, you're in the UK. You see anything in the UK?
Do you know what? With all the clients that I've got over here, I haven't seen a whole lot of movement. There hasn't been anything that I can, hand on heart, put hand up and say, do you know what? I can see why that's been affected. Because there's been. Yeah.
I just want to actually bring someone in quickly because again, we want to try and move on to topics this week as opposed to our usual shit, but I'm locked up again. Anyways, Tim, you're actually in the medical world, so what did you see?
So I would say that
since they called it the medic update, and you deal actually literally in the medical world, I figured you'd be a good guy to ask.
Yeah, I don't think it is a medical issue at all. I mean, I don't think that that's what really this was about. I've only seen 2 of my client sites that have taken a little bit of a downturn, and I think it has maybe more to do with things like author authority and or authoritativeness and expertise. Not having developed enough about that. I know, there's lots of people that are saying no, it's nothing to do with that. That's all I can tell so far, though. So it hasn't been a huge factor. It's only been a couple of sites that have been affected, and I'm going to have to dig into it and see whether it has anything to do with the author attributions or not.
All right. So, but as someone in the actual medical space, you kind of dispute this whole name.
Well, yeah, remember my sample is very small. Compared to the rest of you guys, I have kind of a boutique business, and I know all of my clients pretty on a pretty personal level from my past in the healthcare field. So I may not be a representative sample.
All right, go ahead, Andy. Sorry.
No, that's all right. Yeah, so I mean, from what I've seen over here, there isn't. I actually don't have an awful lot to add to that, really. Most of my clients, in fact, I've got some that are in the finance sector. I've got a number in the technical sectors. I've got 1 or 2 in publishing. So out of all of those, the only ones that I've really noticed anything much is around the technical side of things, or the technical fields. So the ones that I saw that got hit tend to get hit on more around the phrases that they were trying to sort of optimize for. So whether there's something around that makes you think, well, are they trying to make sure that what you're actually trying to optimize for you deserve? There's an element of, it's not even YMYL, it's not even one of your life stuff. It's just some of it seems to be a little bit weird. And you mentioned the classification again, query classification. Some sites don't deserve what they rank for, and I have seen an element of that through what's been shared by others. But I don't have a huge amount that I can actually sort of share with this one. It's not something I've seen an awful lot of movement with.
I will say that with mine that turned down, I don't see a corresponding upturn for any of their local competitors.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
All right. So moving on to other news. Another thing John Mueller brought up in the last week was that apparently EDU links aren't all the thing they've been made out to be by the noobs. Who knew?
What a shock, right?
I know, dude. I was like, in some of those groups that we hang out in, people were losing their shit because EDU links were like, how long has that been going on, Steve? Like since the beginning of time?
Yeah. At least since the beginning of time. Ever since there's been EDU sites, people have been saying getting links from universities is awesome. That's why the what do you call it? The scholarships links started happening after the generic EDU blog stuff went away.
And going back to my conversations with Matt, you know, at least 2006, he was telling me that every kid that goes to school gets a domain, and they were all selling links. So, like, Google was onto this like 12 years ago. Like,
so many schools have discussion boards where students can discuss.
Well, they also get their own blogs too. Like they actually eventually get their own blogs, and they were selling links. And Matt knew about this. And
there tends to be so little control over what actually gets posted to those that the administrators who are responsible for them aren't getting rid of things that shouldn't be posted there. It's pretty much a free-for-all in most of them.
Well, you would suspect that it must have something to do from an algorithmic standpoint of being able to look at that EDU and see where in their hierarchy those links are coming from. I mean, if it's coming from Cornell University, Cornell.edu, that's one thing. If it's coming from Cornell.blog.students.edu, okay, that's a different story.
Under Educase, EDU domains are supposed to redirect anything that links outside of the site anyway. So if people are linking outside of the site, it shouldn't be passing along PageRank or anything. I mean, it's a myth that there's any value to EDU links when they're done correctly.
Well, to me, it's just one more myth that has managed to stay alive. I just don't see them having any great amount of value.
Okay. I mean, it's true at .gov too.
Say again?
Yeah.
It's true at .gov links too.
Yeah.
They're supposed to redirect rather than link directly to something outside of a .gov domain. So if you get a link from a .gov domain that's a direct link, they're doing something wrong. And it may not last too long.
See, it's definitely a little bit different in the UK because if you can get sort of like links from local council websites and universities, they do tip the needle. They really do. There's been one particular client I've been doing this for a number of years now, and their growth has just been sort of exponential. It's just been one big upward movement. And that's literally all that they've focused on. But that's the niche they're in. It makes it relatively easy to sort of get these because the product, the site that they are, so you can actually get these.
Does that make a difference for organic and for local, or only for one or the other?
Sorry, say that again, mate.
Does it affect local or organic or both in that case?
It affects both. Like I said, the councils do tend to affect local quite significantly. Yeah, so and the university links tend to have a bit of an impact on the or more so on the organic. But yeah, I mean over here, .ac.uk is, I don't know if Google sort of sees them as slightly different than the .edus. Maybe they do, maybe they don't. But even the council websites, the .gov.uk's, if you're lucky enough to get them, then they tend to be some like followed links. So yeah, they tend to work.
So just to Doc's point there, are you talking about getting links off of the main domain for a local council or a local educational organization, or we?
Yeah, off the primary.
I agree with
the primary domain.
I agree with Doc. If you .edu.gov/blog/student, whatever the heck it is, that I think is going to lose a lot of value if it's got any at all. Whereas on the main domain, like which you're doing, I think I can see that.
And I suspect the same would be true of a .gov link. If it's coming from the primary, one would expect it to have more value than if it's coming from a tertiary level. But
Well, certainly a .gov. I don't buy the edu thing because again, like that's been spammed the hell out of. So.
And I also think, on a separate note, that the EDU might still work just from a local standpoint as a real link. Like, it doesn't give you the same credibility from overall. Like, it doesn't weigh more, but I think it still counts from a local standpoint.
So.
Well, of course, the other question too is, even if you're getting a properly structured link from some EDU domain, and it is no followed, doesn't that still have some value? Personally, I think it does, but that's conjecture.
Right, a link for traffic is still a link.
Well, even in terms of ranking, I think it may still carry some value with Google.
Yeah, that's probably one of the few tests I've never actually performed a test on exactly what a do follow and a no follow would actually do to sort of move any rankings. But what I'm pretty sure I read somewhere very recently or heard very recently that Google does count no follow links as well as do follow. So all goes towards making us like a natural link profile, I would guess.
Well, plus they've said for years that they would decide ultimately whether they would honor the no follow or not. So that kind of leaves the door open for them to decide to value a link however they see fit.
Agreed.
I don't turn my nose up at a no follow link from a substantial source.
No. No, I don't think anybody would really.
I haven't been able to document any significant gains from a no follow link from a very viable source, but
yeah, but
my gut, I tend to follow my gut.
Hold on, Bill. You and I have both seen enough stuff about non-link citations, right? Entity and non-link citations on an entity and stuff like that. That's still going to have some value, even if it's no followed. It still becomes a non-link citation, wouldn't it?
Right. Local search is based on structured data, and a citation isn't a link. A link has as much value as a mention under location prominence because they're considering the fact that you've identified a local entity and a location associated with it and other facts about it. It's indexing that information and seeing how consistent it is with similar information about the same local identities elsewhere, which is why you have map as something valuable and local.
Right. You know, Doc, I always like to tell people that it's a link is more, you got to think beyond an href, meaning you're linking one valuable source to another by using that non-link citation in an entity form, right? I mean, so it's still a link. It's just not what an href, you know what I mean? It's not what we consider in the SEO world a link, but it's still a link from one entity to another by that citation of that entity.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, I agree 100%.
So, and I just want to say a thank you for this, guys, but I've got to shoot off.
Oh, don't worry, Ammon's chomping at the bit to get in anyway. So.
No worries. I'll catch you guys very soon. Cheers. Bye bye.
All right, take care, Andy.
Bye bye.
And there you go, Ammon. And I'll go get. Well, now I have to go get the goddamn monkeys. So.
Oh no.
Oh yeah, we had a deal that I'd bring Ono in if he showed up. So, because Ono's got a new thing. Anyways, so there you go. So yeah, I think that's about enough of the EDU crap. I don't really know personally. I've not been a fan of it. Well, here's one from Search Engine Journal. Google discourages linking to every page from a site's homepage. Go figure that.
So, yeah, that's not exactly a newsflash.
God.
I think one of the interesting bits about that, at least, was that you fucking brought the squirrel. That thing was making me dizzy, and I'm gonna pass out and have a fucking Caesar last time you brought that thing. You brought the squirrel. Anyways, now I think one of the interesting parts about what at least John's talking about there is that it can, for Google, mess with your information architecture, your click depth, your general overall architecture, and how Google's trying to understand that site. Meaning if you have faceted navigation or things of that nature, it helps Google to better understand the architecture of the site and moving up and down it. And I thought that was actually the interesting part for me about that comment about not linking every page from the home page. So, discuss. I have to go get my monkey.
Isn't it? It's kind of like how they look at pages with your H1 tags and your H2 tags and how you're organizing information on the page. They want the same kind of thing to happen in the architecture of your navigation. So you have broad spectrum ideas on your main navigation, and as you move to secondary and tertiary navigation, the ideas become more specific, and they want them grouped under broad ideas. So that way when they drill down through the navigation, they're getting finer details in that idea.
I agree. I think adding a hierarchy to the information on your site provides information to search engine about what your site is actually about, how it gets classified, how it gets understood, what it's relevant for. I think when they decide to build something like site links for a page, they're looking for guides from the links on your homepage as to what they should include in those site links. It helps them decide what your site is about.
And just one more point, when you're trying to figure it out, you're always trying to figure out how people think. Where are people going to go when they want to find a specific piece? And so the closer you are to how people would naturally go down a tree to find something, the better off you are.
And the amount of confidence people have in what they're going to find on the other side of a link based on the words that you use in it makes a difference as to whether or not they're going to travel through your site and see more pages. So understanding that customer journey and how they're going to experience your site could help improve it, make a difference to how it does.
And just on the reverse, as a designer, I get a little right brain sometimes, and you want to use some funky sayings on your navigation because you don't want to write the same thing that you always want to write, but it's the wrong thing to do. But I see it a lot. Is you get to a site, you think, well, I want this, but what headings are going to be under? You know, because the designer has used some flowery speech in the navigation to kind of be funny or whatever, and it doesn't work.
Well, along those lines, when I first saw that statement, it made some sense, but I wonder, I would think that if my navigation is layered, and I'm showing, for instance, I've got services, and then beneath services, I'm subservient to that in my menu, I'm linking to the various services we offer. I would not expect that to be confusing to Google in terms of interpreting my hierarchy. Anybody disagree with that?
Except, assuming you don't have 10 services, it would be better in a navigation to name the 3 services that you offer as the primary menu item, and so Google kind of sees, oh well, they have these three service offerings, and they're separate and distinct, and you're going to go down. So it's one less click. All I'm saying is one less click rather than have a services tab. And the other thing is Google's kind of always kind of said they want everybody to do one thing. They don't want you to offer 10 services. They want you to offer one.
Well, that's not going to happen.
Yeah, I know. It's
Amazon's not going to stop selling shoes in favor of blouses, you know?
Well, it always, you know, whenever you're building a front page and you're using the blurbs on the front page to link to the separate services, you know, you're always trying to minimize those things so that there's fewer places for users to go. At least my thing.
I don't recall Google ever saying that they want everyone to do one thing. I'm seeing Wikipedia do very well covering everything in the world.
Right.
I'm seeing Yelp still do pretty well covering every possible service in an area. What they want you to do is have a clear identity and not just mess around with everything in an attempt to get links.
Right, but Wikipedia is only doing one thing: organizing information
about everything.
Yeah, about everything, exactly. But they're still only doing one thing.
But how many contractors are out there that are selling air conditioning systems, installing air conditioning systems, repairing and doing maintenance on air conditioning systems? You know, it's just not going to happen. They can want that all they like, and I don't particularly believe that is what they want. But it's not going to happen.
And the same guy is selling fireplaces.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I mean, you know, between being service and sales and engineering is three major differences, and that's just in one product line. And there are a lot of Amazons out there that are handling 1,000 different types of product lines. That's not going to happen, and I don't think it's a realistic guideline to try to follow.
Right.
For instance, on my site, on my top nav, I have services, okay? And drop down beneath that has my 6 or 8 services that I offer. I don't see that as detrimental to helping either my clients or the search engines understanding what we do, what we offer, what we have. And if, you know, maybe I'm wrong, but I just cannot see a negative to that.
And so then in another tab, you would have shop for things that you're actually selling, physical goods that you're selling. And
if I was selling, yes, I would.
Yeah, and
I have.
And if you're doing consulting, you might have a third one for consulting rather than putting it under services where someone's coming out. You might have a consulting service, which would be maybe separate, maybe not. I don't know.
Yeah, I have mine under services, but yeah, it could be. I just, you know, to me, I try to always do my site design and my content for clients first, you know, for the user, and search engine secondary. But to me, I think I've covered both bases there. I've given a hierarchy that's fairly intuitive to visitors to the site to figure out what it is we have to offer and where they can find it, as well as to the search engines. And you know, this announcement made me wonder, okay, am I really being as clear to the search engines as I think I am? And in reflection, yeah, I think I am. I can't say I'm convinced, but I believe I am. I don't see where it's at all confusing.
Yeah,
I have seen some sites that have the equivalent of a sitemap in their footers. They look like they're linking to almost every page on the site. And sometimes it's a matter of overkill. It really is.
What I'd point out is there are an awful lot of SEOs who've been around quite a while. They've done a lot of testing. You know, they keep an eye on their stats. They offer services, and then they blog about all kinds of things that they don't do, like, you know, analytics, actual platforms, or particular tools they use. It doesn't hurt them. You know, they're still on topic. They're still serving the user. That's the most important thing. They're writing the content that gets the links, and it's not confusing anybody as to what they do. And as long as those two parts are true, I think anything works.
That sounds reasonable to me.
The other thing that I took from the article, and I don't know if it was from the article or was a comment on the article, was that you have a top level page called services, and then when you click through the top level page, you may have a secondary menu secondary navigation on that page. It doesn't exist on the home page that lists, that gives you a sub menu of all the services. I think it was in a comment I read to the article or something.
The origin of that is that you've obviously got quite a lot of e-commerce sites out there that offer way too many products to feature them all on the homepage. But you notice they'll put special offers or particularly popular items there. So those are one click for the user, and the others, they go through the shopping process, through the hierarchy. Both work. You know, you make the shortest path for the users to the things that are most important to you, and the search engines pick up on that. So the things you link to from your homepage directly get the most juice, so to speak.
Now, that raises an interesting question, Emmett, and I'm going to lay this question out there for those that are a little bit more code-oriented than I am. Some themes offer a primary and secondary navigation. You'll have something above the hero and something below the hero.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think that the search engines see those two navigation menus in a different light?
Yes. I think it notices the position. If you go back 6 years ago, not really. But, you know, Google moved on to fully rendering the page, looking at the JavaScript, looking at the CSS. They wanted to know how a page was put together. Look at patents.
For instance, what is designed to render first might have more importance to them?
Yeah.
Okay.
They've
done enough user studies to, you know, the traditional F-shaped way of reading a page where somebody would read across the top, then drop down to the thing that caught their attention and read across that. And it was kind of an F shape. You know, Google know which parts of a page people are going to look at. The really tiny top menus, you know, that often have just the login and the policy and stuff like that. I would say it's reasonably safe to assume they don't get as much attention as a bigger top nav menu would. You know, the side menu will get the majority of the attention. Modern sites where, you know, the top menu is the primary navigation and the sidebar is kind of just within a topic, I think the top nav is going to get a lot more of its share. But it's always going to vary, you know, as long as they're always handling footer navigation as well. And those ones where you've got an article and then related links, which is basically a mini navigation by relatedness. Google figure it all out. That I'm not saying they always get it right, but I'm saying that the algorithms are in place to figure it out as best as they can.
Yeah, in terms of footer and sidebar menus, I've never put a lot of stock in those having much value, but it just occurred to me when you were talking that I wonder if that primary, secondary up at the top of the page might be seen any differently. It kind of makes sense what you're saying.
They do purposefully look for things like certain anchor text, such as terms of service within one of those menus to decide how to treat that. They're not going to funnel much page rank, for instance, through a terms of service link, and they're not going to care much in terms of relevance for it either.
Console wireless color. Console wireless color. Console wireless color.
That's what happens when Dave's not here.
Just a big thank you there, Bill, because I was getting seasick watching that bloody squirrel.
Do not hang up your phone. Your Google listing may be in jeopardy.
It's probably Wix.
Oh, Lord.
Wix. You're being sued. Oh, Lord.
I have to say that Wix has really been pushing the YouTube ads. I mean, almost everything I've looked at, has one of those Wix ads at the beginning, and they must be plowing a lot of money into that.
Yeah,
Well, you also have to realize
You
that
can buy those.
the vast majority of the Wix customer base are YouTubers because they don't need SEO. They are 100% social media driven, and they could care less about Google.
Yeah.
Listen, Dave's computer froze up and he's offline, so asked me to kind of keep things moving here. I don't have a list of the topics he had laid out, but I do know one of them was the recent mention of a move away from traditional URLs. Let's open that up for, come on, everybody, jump on that one.
Well, Google saying that the day of the URL was past because people can, make URLs that look confusing to people. Do you know what? Whatever you switch it to, people will find ways to abuse that too. I think they just want to have a second shot at owning more of that market. I think they'd love to push a new technology that everyone has to jump on board with, and Google own more of it than they do of domain names.
Give them a little tighter hold on the market, yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. I just don't see. Certainly, there's some URLs out there that are just convoluting as hell. There's no way in the world anybody's going to know what they mean, much less remember them. But I don't see where. I can't imagine what in the world they could do to redesign the entire URL concept that would be any less subject to confusion and, as you say, abuse.
Yeah, I think, but there's lots of ways you could do it. If you look at things the way Google does, then you could have the domains actually registered that it looked for similarities to others, and if you didn't have any genuine links to that, it wouldn't let you register them. So you couldn't be Microsoft 1 unless you were Microsoft. I think they were talking about primarily hiding the URL in the browser and just showing the domain name. That was one of their ideas. We're talking about, putting in authority certification somewhere into the URL process so that when somebody is trying to fake looking like somebody else, they can't get away with it.
Well, that would be relatively easily done from their end. For instance, if they just make their tabs in their Chrome browser show the domain name, which they're almost doing now, but that's not really going to affect anything outside of the Chrome browser.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah,
except
but,
that what happens
look
in
at what
Chrome usually happens elsewhere later, because they kind of are the leading browser.
Sometimes not. Like the
Yeah,
latest
sometimes
Chrome
not.
update looks more like Apple. Like whatever just updated to me makes it look like Safari.
Do you remember when they brought in their lightning fast mobile content pages for news sites? And oh, look, you can use this. Oh, it'll be on a Google domain. Maybe they could come up with something like that, and everyone would have to use a Google domain for these new domain names. That would, oh, what a terrible thing that would be. Google have a DNS server, of course, and it's relatively popular. It's okay. But I think they would love to have something that gave them even more insight into where everyone was going, what the traffic was doing, than that. And therefore, for once, I am going to be particularly suspicious of Google. Often I'll say, no, I don't think they're doing that. But this one, yeah, I think this is about getting even more information on where people are traveling. And I think whatever they propose will have a way that allows Google to track even more of where people are going, and they do it.
Certainly their business model is totally centered upon knowing everything they can about us, the users. So,
we have seen how much they pushed AMP and wanted people to use AMP.
Yeah.
It's
exactly that.
I think it depends on how much behind it they are, if that makes sense. How much they push certain things, and then other things they back off of and give up on. So it just depends on what the response is.
Google Plus, what?
Wave?
I'd be suspicious of Google wanting to play around with something that's worked for 25 years.
Well, of
Yeah.
course, one of the big things which is directly related to this is them killing off the Google URL shortener.
Right. We don't need the shortener. We don't need the URLs either. Just
Exactly. The URL shortener, unless you already have an account with Google, you can't start one. You can't do URL shortening unless you've already done some URL shortening, and that's only going to work for a year. Your existing shortened URLs using the Google one, yeah, you've got 1 year to change those over to something that will work longer.
right, but the other ones will still work, right?
Yeah, and they're all trying to sell you premium services.
Yeah, and Google bought the only one that really worked.
Yeah.
I had that on, I was using that shortener until Google bought it, and then I removed it.
You know, it's interesting. There's this very emotional issue in culture. Anyway, there's neutrality, and that's a big hot topic. But you know, it just occurred to me that eventually somebody's going to need to start talking about search neutrality.
Do that again, Tim.
What?
Well, so net neutrality is a big hot topic, and it's because we all feel like we're entitled to, you know, certain aspects of internet usage, and I'm not a detractor of net neutrality, but in some ways, it's almost scary how much control Google now has over a lot of the web. And you could almost see some movement beginning someday for something called search neutrality or something like that. I bet that kind of worries Google from time to time.
You have to build a better mousetrap first, and that ain't going to happen because Google owns all the patents. So, you know,
yeah, but
that would be hoping for something that's not going to happen.
But then they tip over into being subject to all the monopoly rules at some point.
How can it be a monopoly when everybody chooses to use it? It's not like we're forced to use just Google.
I think we're.
And yet we are.
The thing is,
no, we're not.
Terry,
anybody can use Bing, DuckDuckGo. It's the results aren't as good, so everyone goes to Google.
Right, it's a better product.
Do a simple survey.
Someone who's got a better product. That makes no sense.
Terry, do a simple survey and ask people what other search engines are on the internet.
Right.
Yeah, but that's bad.
And you will find most people don't even know there are other search engines.
Yeah.
Everything is Google.
Well, Bing. Yep. Everybody has Windows has Bing.
Right, but it's not like a monopoly. Like if there was only one internet provider, or if there was only one phone company, or like you could only get a cell phone through one, you know, cable monopoly from that standpoint. You can go get other results. The results suck, so they're a losing competitor, but they're not a monopoly.
Yeah, I think
anybody who's got a Windows machine has access to Bing. It's right in whatever they call that.
But I'm not saying they have access. I'm saying they even know it exists.
Or do they care?
My mom she has a Windows machine. When her computer starts up, it starts on MSN, and she goes into the MSN search bar and types in Google. She does not realize she can actually
preference for Google over Bing, and that's what it's about.
That's marketing. That's fantastic marketing.
It's also building a better mousetrap. Like,
yes,
why is there not being a second, like another mousetrap? Because the other one does the job well. Nobody's gonna bother to try and fix something that don't need fixing.
You know, where I think Google's vulnerability lies is that they are tied to search. Okay, if for instance, if another major player, let it be Apple, Amazon, whoever, was able to come in and present their offering as purchasing, okay, versus or sourcing versus search, I think they could break their patent, and they could conceivably take a lot of market share away from Google for that aspect of search, okay? Because those patents are not, and I think Bill would probably bear this out, patents can be broken.
Yep. Also, on the whole monopoly thing, you've got to bear in mind that almost 50% of all purchasing behavior is owned by Amazon. Because if I want to search for a product, Amazon is the search engine I go to before Google.
For purchasing,
And
yep.
I'm not alone in that. I'm in a club with 50% of the population.
I say Amazon is a destination, just like Google is, only it's a shopping destination rather than a search destination.
I'd even call it a shopping search engine, Terry. And
then
there's YouTube, which is the video search engine. You know, we've got Facebook as the social search engine. I want to find a person. I might use Google, but I'll probably start off with Facebook. If I know their name and town, Facebook is great for locating people and putting me in touch with them. If I go to Google, all it's going to do is give me their Facebook profile anyway.
And in that regard, that's where Google doesn't have that tight a stranglehold on search. For instance, the way that Amazon has been able to build and maintain for some prolonged period, which that alone will not stand for a good defense on Google's part in court, because they've not challenged Amazon. I don't know if they have a valid challenge even available to them, but they have not challenged them. Amazon has been operating for years as a purchasing search engine or mechanism. So I think their patents are losing their teeth.
I'm thinking Amazon isn't you. Have you ever seen Amazon search?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not very good, sir.
No.
Well,
it's
not
crap, in fact.
It's not
I
Google, but
love it.
It's not bad.
It reminds me of Google Play. Not quite as bad as Google Play, but close.
Doc, I was going to say, move your microphone closer to your mouth.
I was just being told a little while ago that I was too loud. That's why I moved it away. How's that?
Oh, you're not. You're not loud for me.
Well, turn your hearing aid down, Steve.
Well, for whatever reason, your the sound of your speech was less.
Very subtle.
So
yeah, I think there's more going on though than just the patents here. I mean, coming from the UK, the EU, there are anti-competitive bodies over there. I think there is a lag between recognition of the monopoly, if you want to call it that, or monopolistic conditions being created, and regulators catching up and actually understanding just what all of this means. And I think there's an analogy to this. It's the telephone companies. You know, you had these big Marbell type telephone companies. What happened? They got broken up. And I think once people who have the power to and can recognize what's going on, because there's more than just search going on with Google, and they're trying to build a better mousetrap. They underpin so much else aside from just search. I think once people realize that this is a mousetrap that hurts consumers and is effectively corporate control of free flow of information, et cetera, then we'll see the regulators stepping in. I think in the EU it's probably more likely because they're that way more inclined.
I think so too.
Yeah. So I don't think the patents are going to protect anybody in the long run. I think they're in just a period where regulators and people generally don't understand just what a box is being built around us. And they won't realize that until they start butting up against it and realize that, I can't get out of this.
To that point, and we're talking again about Amazon and Google, one of my clients, in certain markets, you search for their product and Amazon comes up with that product before their website. Now, my client is actually selling through Amazon, but the thing is that the user buys it through Amazon, and Amazon gets a cut of the profits that my client would otherwise get if they buy it directly from the website. But the first three positions for the product is taken up by Amazon pages to their Amazon store rather than the.
Are you talking about a search for those products on Google as opposed to?
Yeah.
You know, that to me clearly speaks to, you know, an issue with Google itself in terms of, you know, if it's ranking somebody else other than the manufacturer prime supplier, if you like, of a product, and it's ranking them Amazon above that, then that's an issue. You know, why is that being allowed? You know, that's whether it's the algorithm or deliberate or whatever it may be. I'm noting, just want to throw this one in the mix. You know, Google didn't send anybody to DC yesterday. There's an empty seat. I think that's somewhat related, but tangentially. But that doesn't make any sense in terms of the relevancy of a search result. If I want to find Blue Widget, you know, I want to see the Blue Widget website front and center, not some affiliate, which Amazon is a de facto in this case. So that's
kind of the usual thing I see, Carl. So I must admit, Steve, I'd be looking very hard at that client for what signals they've got that are dragging them down, because that's a very unusual situation, and I think they've got a penalty. Either that, or they've got almost no backlinks and authority.
Well, they're not.
They've copied everything off their site onto their Amazon profile.
Well, or if they have the links pointing to the Amazon profile, like that could be a case where they're just not paying attention.
But one thing that does happen, of course, is, you know, you end up, if it's a product that's popular with Amazon affiliates, then all of those links to the Amazon page can outweigh the you know, the page that the manufacturer has. One of the situations that does happen. So what they could do is look at having their own affiliate program, because it's still going to be a smaller cut than Amazon's taking.
Right. Right.
You know, we're talking about physical products here, but services are also something to discuss, and that brings in Google local service ads. In some markets, in some industries, they're pretty much completely, you know, inserting themselves between consumers and providers and charging lead generation fees.
I've seen one manufacturer's site that was being outranked for its products on sites like eBay, and they had an issue with their website. They weren't ranking well for their own brand.
Yeah,
they really needed help with their SEO because they weren't doing it well.
They're getting beat by domain authority, Bill, and shouldn't just beat by that.
You know, we know that Google like to recognize the entity and attribute it properly. So when that's not happening, that's not what Google want to happen, and there is something wrong with the signals where it's not identifying the manufacturer as the authoritative link for that particular entity.
So I saw something similar about 4 or 5 months ago with Audi on Audi leasing for one of their supercars, where there was a leasing company that was ranking above Audi itself for the leasing, and the leasing was only available through Audi. But then when I unzipped what was going on there, it didn't stick around for more than about 6 months. But the guys coming in outranking Audi, there was a lot of black hat PBN stuff going on, which I think gave them the boost, got them above, and then off they went. Couldn't see Audi being under a penalty unless they're doing something like the BMW stuff back in the day, and that would have been public. So just my 2 cents on that one.
Yeah, yeah, it certainly happens. There are, you know, occasions. It's just with Amazon, I'm pretty sure they've never felt that they needed a PBN. So you know, with that one, I'm pretty sure it's just the signals.
Amazon is a PBN.
Yes.
You know, one of the things that comes to mind too is I think, and we're all guilty of, we call Google a search engine. And we've always called it a search engine. We always think of it as a search engine. Obviously,
Hey, Doc, you get that microphone. We're all going to have to lip read.
Something's wrong. Yeah.
No, we can't hear you.
me now.
Replug in your connection.
You're very subtle,
What the hell?
and we know you're not subtle.
One extreme to another. Too loud and then not loud enough.
Can you hear me now?
Same way. But go ahead, I guess.
You got your Verizon phone there, Doc? Can you hear?
I just think it's important to remember that Google, even though we use it as a search engine, it isn't. It's a fucking advertising engine. Okay?
Good point.
We are an avenue to be able to sell ads. And I think that often is what stands in our way of trying to understand what they're doing, why they're doing it, and where they might be going. Because we think in terms of search, and search is secondary to them. It's become secondary.
Yeah.
Now it's all about selling ads. And they can sell ads because we use them as a search engine. We're
Right.
there. We're the product. So I think that clouds our vision sometimes in trying to understand their motivation.
Yeah.
I'm not. I hear that one a lot. I've never quite agreed with it. I don't think
Me neither.
Google seems
knows why people come to their website. It's not to see ads. It's for the search.
But
The ads are secondary.
No, obviously they don't come to see ads. I'm telling you, what I mean is that Google's primary responsibility is to sell ads. That's their moneymaker. The only reason they can sell ads is because they have users that will see those ads.
Because they come there to search.
Because they come there to search.
They have more
As long as we're there to search, they see the ads, so they can sell those ads because the advertisers know there's an audience.
Google have always been an information company. First, foremost, absolutely, that's their primary thing. The side of the business that we don't see is actually the biggest, which is the one that's continually researching better networking, better speeds, better ways of moving data about. Jeff Dean works on that side of things primarily, and the guy is an absolute genius. Google is a data company. Now, search was one way that they could turn that information into something that would draw people, a utility. And ads are something they can use to monetize that. But think of those as like a marketing department and a packaging department. Doesn't change what the company is, they're just departments. Now, yes, the amount of weight they have at the director's table is going to vary. There are times when the ad side of the business gets a lot more cycles to play with than the organic side would like to be using this month. But that Chinese wall has always been there. Organic doesn't think about what's happening in the ads. Ads are not allowed to mess with anything organic. But there is a product meeting that actually says this is what gets us the most money.
I'm going to slightly disagree with you there, Amon, because I think up to a point that's true, and it's all correct. But when Google first came along and started with the idea of putting ads on a search page, I think we all can go back. We've all got grey hair. We can remember when that happened. And they wanted to see is how is this going to affect, people using the search page and the engine, etc. But now it's much further along than that. And there's two things that I think that argument holds up until these. One is if there's some kind of leadership management error where they just go for the money, or more pragmatically where they start tweaking around as they have done in terms of how much can we show on a search result page in terms of the money spinners, and what are the, how far can we push it? And if we reduce the amount of search real estate there, which they have done, and I see pages where it's basically ads and a whole load of other junk before I get to the SERPs, then what did that do to their revenue? And is that revenue increase that they got because they kept a lot of these changes, did it outweigh the loss of utility, if you like, on the search engine? Now, that I think is what's going on. So the idea that, yeah, I get the, the separation of church and state, and I think that up to a point that's probably right. But I think above all that, there are people that are looking at how much money can we actually extract out of this machine that we have built.
Obviously, to an extent, they have to. They've got a fiduciary duty to their stockholders to make as much money as they can. That's the way any publicly traded corporation has to run. It's supposed to.
No, that is a myth. That is not a law. There is no fiduciary responsibility like that. Otherwise, there would be a lot of lawsuits against Elon Musk at this point, or even Google for all their research and development that never turns into profit. I know it's become a huge thing to say, but it's not true, and it's a way of large businesses pretend that they can get away with doing things that they really shouldn't.
Yeah. I know that there's wrinkles in this, but it all started because of a couple of actual lawsuits where the stockholders sued the company for not making as much money as they could because they said they were trying to drive the share price down.
But see, that's the other issue. They were intentionally trying to drive the share price down in those lawsuits. I know which ones you're talking about, and that's a different issue than not trying to aggressively make as much money as possible.
Yeah, they have a responsibility.
The instances where a director is able to do other things is known as the business judgment rule. If the director can couch what they're saying in terms of how it helps improve business, they can pretty much get away with that.
Yeah, exactly. Amazon posted losses for its first few years of operation to grow its market.
Never made a cent ever. Never made a dime yet.
Exactly. But that was all a side point. What I wanted to say, Carl, I think you've made the fundamental error that SEOs make. We think that Google started out with the idea of sending people to lots of sites. And that's never what Google saw themselves as doing. They saw themselves providing information to users. And although they've replaced lots of those search listings with information panels, they are providing more information on a page today than they did way back in 93, in 98, in 2003, in 2013. To them, they are serving the user more information per ad rather than less.
And they're
doing a number of ads on the page as well.
And they're doing things that keep people on pages. Like people also ask questions, where people will click to look at the answers and then look at the other questions and keep on clicking. And people return to those searches because they find information. They find stuff they didn't anticipate finding, but their curiosity is met and encouraged by those search results. They provide additional information, provide additional query refinements, help them find things that they didn't know they were looking for, but once they saw them on the search result, at the bottom of the set of results, they stayed and kept on searching.
I don't know what suddenly happened there, Bill, but your voice has gone Dalek and your camera's shaking like crazy. Are you having an earthquake?
No.
Or a seizure.
Yes, it is very Who. That was a very Whovian moment, Bill.
I have to say, your voice has gone Dalek. That is such an English thing to say.
No, I said that I had to follow up. That was Who.
Yeah, but you're research geeks. I knew you'd get the reference.
So it says the guy with the Transformers in the background.
That's Voltron. That's not Transformers. Voltron.
I would say you can tell pretty quickly where their interests are when you look where the research money goes and who's getting all the money. They ain't putting money into the ads much. All the research is on better search. I haven't read anything about ads in quite a while.
Yeah, but why do they sell ads?
Well,
because they're the preferred search engine.
That's how they make money. That doesn't mean necessarily that that's their prime interest.
Oh, well,
But part of what Ammon was saying, that the ads and all the other stuff on in the SERP is still serving the primary purpose of bringing information to users.
Yeah.
The other thing too, Doc, is when they brought out AdWords, they actually said they were very worried that it was going to degrade the search, and they were very cognizant of that and wanted to make sure that that didn't happen. Hence the Chinese wall.
no, I assume, a broad assumption, but I assume that they, they're going to look at their income, obviously, from ads, and they're going to look at their user level in terms of search. And I think the two are very closely intertwined. But basically, what it boils down to is you, as a searcher, as a user, have a dollar value to them. If they lose a bunch of users because they've done something with ads, they need to adjust. They need to fix that because they can't afford to lose users, or they will eventually lose advertisers. By the same token, they're going to watch their advertising costs. They can't afford to overcharge for the audience that they have. So, that's a metric. You talk about walking a tightrope, trying to find the balance between search users and paying advertisers must be a tremendous challenge.
Yeah.
And a constant. God, how many times per day do they have to look at that metric and determine if something needs to be adjusted? It must be.
Their dollars are totally dependent upon how many people come to search. Period. AdWords. Yes, it is. The whole bidding system is built on how many people are coming to search on a keyword. That's what causes a bid to go up. More people buying on that keyword. So if they dilute search, they lose money.
It's not quite like that, Terry, because obviously some of the very cheap products have the most searches, but there's no margins, so you can't push the bids above the margins. There's not a lot of huge money ads for porn, but there's an awful lot of searches for it. There's limits to it, but the thing is, I think we're in our bubble here. If you compare Google advertising to other forms of advertising, it's really, really good. If you look at the advertising on YouTube, it's far harder to target, and they've had a lot more problems with it. Turn on a TV program, watch your favorite show. Maybe you're watching things about time travelers saving the world, and suddenly on comes an advert that assures you that if a woman uses this brand of tampon, she can suddenly learn to skydive. I think relevancy in Google is still a billion miles ahead of anything else that we see advertising in, whether it's print, whether it's TV, whether it's the radio.
And comparatively, it's cheap. It really
is. Yeah. And I think, Terry, to your point about them not doing a lot of research in terms of advertising, don't sell them short. I think that they're seeing valuable data that's adjusting their theories and approach on a daily basis. They have probably done more, just as evidenced by their results, they've probably done more in marketing research than anybody else for the last 30 years, 20 years.
Here's another thing I just thought of was the whole quality score of ads based on I gather it's based on queries. Your quality score is measured against a set of queries. So your ad, even though your bid is lower, your ad can surface higher because the quality score is better.
Yes. That's always been in AdWords right from the start, where the amount of clicks something got could mean that even though it was bidding less, it got positioned higher. But that again maximizes the profit to Google, because it is the balance of, doesn't matter what you bid, how much in total do we make from showing this ad, overshowing that ad. If that ad gets less clicks, even though it's paying more, it may be that it earns less than the other ad. There is another element to quality scoring, which is supposedly topic focused, and I think what they do is they compare the keywords against where a page would rank organically for that. But they don't talk about that side of the quality scoring very often. But I think there is a relevance factor as well.
Yeah, the relevance factor, they're actually looking for the keywords on the page where you're sending them from the ad to see whether the query matches the ad, matches the page that the user is going to end at.
Yeah. Okay, we're pulling up on an hour and a half here. We probably ought to start bringing this to a close. Anybody else? Again, I apologize. Dave had to bow out because his computer went up in a puff of smoke. So I don't know the topics he had lined up. I'm sure he had more. Anybody got something pressing that they've seen pop up that we can do a quick roundabout on? If not, we can say our howdies and goodbyes and move into the green room and let everybody go about their business. Don't everybody jump at once? I guess not. Okay, well, Ammon, what's your plan for the week?
Drinking.
Cheers, mate.
There's a bear o'clock already.
How about you, Bill? You're not gonna pick up that heroin habit again, are you? Nothing. What do you got planned for the week, Billy?
Not too much. It's gonna be a quiet one, I think.
Take the reverb off, Bill.
Hey, Bill, say exterminate.
I think he's got a fuzz box. How about you, Rusty?
Who's he addressing?
Who's Rusty? He's got mute on.
There you go. What do you got programmed for the week? Huh? Besides one thing we already know about. Yeah, you're still muted, man.
You'd be muted.
Come on, Steve. What are you up to? Because you got the most interest. What with the farm and the machinery and the hobbies and the...
Oh man! Oh, this week is I'm praying for rain so we don't have to cut hay, and we have to move the bulls into a new pasture because it's time to stop letting them have fun with the girls. And yeah, it's a typical day on the farm around here.
Yeah.
And I think I'm going to start building my first guitar from scratch.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Hey,
hell yeah.
Got some nice spruce.
What was that? There were 3 people talking at the same time.
I said you got some nice aged spruce.
I don't know how aged it is, but it looks nice. We'll see.
You probably have to have it inside for about at least a season, right?
Yeah, at least a year.
Yeah, there's a sawmill closing up out here, and I'm trying to get as much of their stuff as I can. And I got to looking at it and thinking of all the different projects I could do, and building a guitar seemed like a fun one.
What's the word? Lotharian? You will become a Lotharian?
I have no.
Lotharian, that's
only if it makes money.
No, isn't a Lotharian a guitar builder?
Luther.
The what?
A Luther.
A Luther.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
I watched at least 2 videos on YouTube. How hard can it be?
Yeah, you watched 2 vids. Carl, what are you up to besides taking over the world?
No, that's my wife. Now I'm waiting for delivery of a new guitar. So
what'd you buy?
I am. I'll build them.
While we're at it, happy anniversary, Carl.
Say again?
While we're at it, happy anniversary.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Good on you.
15 years and she hasn't killed you yet.
Yet being the key factor.
Plenty of time.
There you go. It's still early. Terry, what do you got going, man?
Probably finish the build on WordPress. I started a site on Tuesday. Probably finish it midweek. Not bad, I guess.
You're on WordPress, so you're not using Wix? Oh, come on.
Yeah.
Yeah, Wix doesn't like LSI.
Yeah.
Steve?
I think I'm gonna continue work on that change of theme for that I started last Saturday. And you said it's possible as long as it doesn't drive me crazy. I think maybe it will. It is a daunting project to change a 30-page website to change the theme midstream, but I think it's absolutely necessary.
Well, good luck with it. Mr. Gerixer? Besides the bulls, how's the pond going?
Can't hear you, Doc.
How's the pond going, Mr. Gerixer? You got any 12-inch perch in there yet?
Oh, actually, I haven't been down there in a week. The bluegill are taking over, so we need to have a fish fry or something and thin them out.
Yeah, for sure. They'll clean you out, man. Okay, well.
Sunfish, catch a basket full of them, and you might have a small meal.
Yes.
Sometimes I've seen bluegills run 8-9 inches. They can pan fry up.
Yeah, but most of them are about 2 to 3 inches.
This is true. Yeah.
It kills me. I go to the island here, just outside of Toronto, and all the Chinamen are there catching sunfish about this big.
Yeah.
Just laugh my ass off because there's no meat on them. Like basically.
They're catching bait. That's what they're doing. They're catching bait.
All right, I'm going to take the thing offline. Everybody have a great day. Thanks for joining us. Nice to have a big crowd in here. And I'll see you guys next week. Into the green room.